Jai Baba, this week's topic is the importance of play and joy in daily life. Our life, can you understand?
Yes, yes, you're doing great.
Our lives can be so heavy, full of responsibilities and obligations. One of the most beautiful parts of Baba's life was the balance of play and work. The mandali were ground down by Baba and often pushed to exhaustion, but there was no shortage of fun. They would put on skits, tell jokes and stories, play games and play tricks on each other to lighten the heaviness of the work they were doing for their beloved. Many of us forget the importance. Do I go up?
Yeah.
Many of us forget the importance of adding play and fun into our lives amidst the hard work and mundane routines of everyday life. Do you break up your daily life with a ritual of joy and lightness? When is the last time you awakened that childlike freedom and richness within yourself? When you have you felt that it was Baba there with you? Oh, it goes on, huh?
She's wordy.
When is the last time you laughed a full belly laugh? Baba says real happiness lies in making others happy. Isn't happiness contagious? Have you noticed the energy of the room or within yourself shift when someone is exuding happiness and enthusiasm around you? Do you struggle to give yourself permission to take a break from the hard work? Do you find that when you do take a break to lighten the mood, you're actually able to be more productive? Thank you. Do you bring that childlike enthusiasm to the work you're doing? How do you bring joy into your lives? Isn't joy the source of service? Are you able to serve your beloved without holding that within yourself? These are just a few questions to spark conversation. Excited to see where this goes. In his love, Margie and Peter.
Thank you, Valeria. It sounded so beautiful read in your accent. I'm very when you read that.
I'm going to ask Valeria we were talking about joy, and she shared with me her mantra. Would you share your mantra?
Yes. For several years now, I have told myself that I have a mantra, and it's a mantra that I put into action, of course. And it is, I play and I pray. I pray and I play. Those are the two things I do in my life, mostly. I also cook and dig and do gardens and this and that, but I play and I pray.
Jai Baba.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba. Wow. Does anybody have anything that they want to venture out with? I was so excited about this topic because I feel like a lot of our conversations, I mean, I know Jeff often does effort and grace, which can be heavy and can be light. Whoops. But a lot of the ones that we talk about on Thursdays can be a little bit heavier, like talking about surrender or self-worth or, self-acceptance. And also that all of that stuff really doesn't have much power if we don't have joy and play along with it. And so I was curious if you guys have ways that you break it up, and do you find it harder to be in the joy than in the nitty-gritty hard work? So does anyone have any thoughts that they want to come forward with on playing and praying? All right, Josh.
All right, yes. So yeah, this is a big topic for me. I should probably spend the rest of my life on this topic. Yeah, as Margi, my life coach, knows, I oscillate between sort of incredible playfulness, and and then and restrictive adulthood. These two parts of me, and yes, I often don't give myself permission to play when I feel like Baba has very obviously given me play sanskaras. So yeah, it's an interesting challenge. It really is an interesting challenge. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how sort of like, I think it's scary. I think that's the reason why I don't play more, is because it feels easier to be an adult, and to just sort of almost follow the crowd than to break the mold. And really, I think it's following the intuition. I'd argue that the play part and the intuitive part are very closely linked. Yeah, and and it's right, Baba would get the mandali playing games all the time. It was games, games, games. And yeah, so okay, so I would like to hear of course people's 2 cents to how the playfulness can be fostered if one has hypothetically gone through a period of denying their playful self. For a friend, of course. And I'm probably going to forget everything you say 5 minutes after you say it, but either way, I would still like to hear that.
Josh, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. It's and yes,
Josh,
and
you're very good at asking questions for other people, but I want to, before we go on to Ron, I want to ask you a question.
please, yes, I love this.
When you do take time to play, hold on, I gotta mute Jeff.
Yeah.
When you do take time to play, do you find that fake adulting that you're doing, not fake adulting, but you know what I mean, forced adulting, restrictive adulting that you're doing is easier, or that you have more vitality in it?
Yes, I find that when I take time to truly play, to engage with that, it gives my life meaning. And so the adulting can then become possible.
That's actually, you make a beautiful point there.
Yes, and I think it's very easy for me to forget that adulting, the purpose behind adulting is to allow my inner child to play. The purpose behind building a structured life for myself is for me to have happiness. Often I just get so stuck in building this structured life that I forget what it was originally about. So yes, I love these questions, Margi. Please, if there's a lull in the conversation, ask me more or whatever. I love the questions. The questions are good.
Thanks, Josh. We appreciate you. We always appreciate your shares. They always make me smile. Thank you. All right, we've got Ron.
So I wanted to share two things that I say. I think I would call them sayings, but actually I'm old enough so that I have to admit I don't really remember for sure if I came up with these or not. But nevertheless, it's possible. One, I'm really not sure at all that I came up with it, but I claim to have come up with it, which is, are we having fun yet? What do you think? Think I came up with that, or has that been around before me? Anyhow.
It sounds like you came up with "Don't Worry, Be Happy" too.
The other one is one that I'm pretty sure I did come up with, and I've been putting it out there for people to take up if they're into it, which is, take that mind of yours and change it into a entertainment center, or amusement center, from being a torture chamber. That's what it is. So you want to change your mind from being a torture chamber to an amusement center, and that's worked for me. I really think it's better off. I'm better off with that. And that's one of the ways of having fun.
No, it's beautiful. Thank you. Because it's true. We have two choices. I recently had this, I'm very into doing inner work, almost to a fault. And I had this feeling the other day, it was a couple weeks ago, but I was like, what if I looked at Margi, who I am, and all of my, patterns and whatever, when you get into that world of doing inner work, all the things they call it. And I was like, what if I just explored it and looked at it, this beautiful canvas that I've been handed this life to make something of, instead of this thing that I have to work through and get through. And it's actually changed my perspective of like, oh, wow, what do I have to play with in this life? Oh, I've got some narcissistic patterning. Great. I'll work with that. That sounds fun to work through. But yeah, I love that, Ron. Thank you. All right, we have Tina up next. You're muted.
Yeah. Margi, you are beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you.
But I have been accused of being irreverent because I rewrite songs. And I guess I am irreverent. But I like to have fun. And I have my inner child alive and well. And that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah. Even your Baba rap at the Heartland Sahavas, when I think it was RT time, that was what everybody wanted to hear. Nobody wanted to hear any more of those songs. They wanted to hear the rap that made everybody laugh.
Yeah.
And so that joy really, the songs were all beautiful, the Heartland Center, I have to just say that. It was a really beautiful RT. But it just shows like the joy, there's something that people want in that joy, right? That like childlike fun playfulness. Yeah. So
Yeah, I have never grown up really. So I celebrate myself and I'm enjoying life. And I'm in a play now.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
All right. Is it Diane? Is it Terry? Is it Valeria? We don't know.
It's one of the dogs. So during COVID, and Ron, I made this one up, I swear. But I had to find the J to put back because I was just living in the oi. Think about it, everybody. As soon as you think about it, I'll see it on your face. Instead of oi, I put the J in front of it, so it become joy. Hey, when you have to explain a joke, it doesn't work as much, but
No, Diane, they're all muted. You just didn't hear them laughing.
yeah, there you go. I didn't see the smiles either. But Terry lightens me up. I can take things very seriously and sometimes personally, and it affects how I live. And I think I've shared with you all that our car lost its transmission on the way to the Marana Sahavas, and it took 3.5 weeks to get it back. And I got it back last week on a Wednesday. And on Saturday, we went to a festival not far from here. And on the way back, we had a flat tire in the same car. But we made it fun. We were with each other. That's all that mattered. I called the tow truck. They got there. They took us to the tire place. We left it there. We got to walk home. We were with our dogs. And it was not what we had planned for the day, but we went with it. And by going with it and letting go of any agenda, lightened us up. It changed everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful.
Joy Baba.
Joy Baba.
Oy vey.
Thanks, Diane. All right, Tony.
Hello. First, I want to say, Valeria, it is such a thrill to see you. I was there in '92 when Bauji stayed for a week in Assisi, And it's hard to believe that it's been 31 years since I've seen you, because you're always with me. Since that experience, since that lovely week. As for joy, at first I was like nervous about the subject, because you can't like force play. You can't say, okay, I'm going to have to play now for Baba. But I think the play comes out of joy, and the joy out of spending for me, and the joy comes out of spending time with Baba, quiet time with Baba, different. Um, and then I get very silly, and I say silly things, and sometimes I go into very strange characters, and I speak in this character about whatever it is that's going on, and I just play, and I like being silly. Um, the counterpart. Oh, and the best, which I just did now, is when I can take myself lightly. So when I raised my hand, and was waiting for my turn, it was like this whole thing kicked in, and oh, all right, Baba, help me just be natural, help me do it. And I saw myself, and I said, that's so silly, it's so funny, this thing I do. So I like to see the silliness that I do, and then I act silly. um, Not all the time. I mean, when I'm doing something that's work that requires concentration, I'm not giddy and joyful or anything. I'm just doing the work. And sometimes I'm dealing with something that's stressful and anxiety provoking and everything else. And I don't try to be joyful and happy and funny and silly. I experience with Baba the stress, the anxiety, the depression, even, whatever it is. But the only other thing I thought of it is the quiet time with Baba. I'll come out of it not particularly feeling anything, but then suddenly I'm acting very silly around the house, and I realize there's so much joy bubbling up that the work of spending the time with Baba just naturally gave rise to the joy. So that's all.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony. No, beautiful. And I think you actually bring up a good point, which like joy comes in self-forgetfulness, right? We're not thinking, oh, I need to be joyful right now, right? Because that can make it feel like a responsibility or something that we have to do. When joy is like this spontaneous thing that when we stop blocking it, it can just flow. Like the other day, I've just been really busy, and my girlfriend turned on the sprinklers in our backyard. And like I just looked at the sprinklers, and I had this like urge to go run and just jump in them, like a kid. And I felt myself stop myself for a second, because I was like, oh, that's not very grown up of me. And then I did it anyway. And like the joy that all of us had in that moment. But I think that's kind of how we live our life, is we stop that. We stunt, oh, that's not adult enough for me to do, or like I'm too old to go run in the sprinklers. And it's contagious too. And even, in the email, when I put real happiness lies in making others happy. Have you ever seen a stressed out person make someone else happy? I mean, really, like, have you ever seen somebody who is like heavy walking into a room, like full of anxiety, and not anxiety that they're maybe struggling with, but like anxiety of being there and feeling like they need to be somewhere else? No, that you're not, you might think you're doing work for Baba, but you're cutting yourself off from that connection, which just flows so beautifully in happiness. I'm going to talk until somebody else puts their hand up, or we can ask Josh questions. If anybody has questions for Josh, just put them in the chat, and we'll turn it over. But when I think about joy, I really think about my teen years, and Jeff can probably talk about this. It was just like a time on the center when we had so much joy. And growing up, like I didn't realize that we had no money, like at all. Like, I mean, I lived with Vanessa and Kevin, and it was so many kids. And we were like, instead of lost dogs, we would just find lost kids on the block. And so Vanessa would have to feed like 18 kids in a night. And I found out later that she budgeted with $600 a month to feed all the kids. And so I never understood why we ate rice and beans every night, but there was so much joy in that the things that we did, and you don't need a lot, right? We would like make robot suits out of like tinfoil and paper boxes. And it was just this present moment that existed. And then, we were always on the center. So we would bring like 18 kids to the center to play volleyball. And that same thing, we would just like come through. We, I look at what kids do now, and they, their parents give them money to go to the mall or whatever. And I realize that joy is totally priceless and it costs nothing, right? Having that time of just like getting lost in the present moment and flowing. And then all the adults, I can look back and remember as a teenager, seeing the adults get sucked into that little joy bubble, right? And it really is contagious. The more you let it flow, the more you give other people permission to let it flow. Because we're taught in the world, for some reason, Bob has set it up this way, that people are not supposed to be happy, right? That means if you're not if you're happy, you're not working hard enough. And just when someone takes that step to step outside into the joy, it allows another person to be happy, and then another person to be happy, and another person to be happy. But how about you, Jeff? You don't know anything about joy.
Well,
all you brought was serious
no,
philosophical conversation.
I like things very structured, right down to the very second. No, but you have to realize that part of that food budget, was like covered by the communal meals.
Yeah.
Here's a saying. Do we forget to play because we become too old, or do we become old because we forget to play? Anyway, I don't know quite what to say. I had a very idyllic childhood, and we just played all the time, except when we came in for dinner or lunch. And so my whole kind of approach to life has been to have fun. And Baba might be the first avatar to tell everybody to have fun, F-U-N. Can you imagine? Jesus didn't say that, at least as Jesus comes down to us, or Muhammad, I'm sure it was a lot of fun with them, but as it's kind of translated down all these centuries, it's not that fun, I'm sure a lot of the religious attitude kind of takes all the oxygen of fun out of the room, you might say. But I call my state a state of unfelt joy, meaning I've gone back there repeatedly and discovered there's always joy at the heart of me. So why do I have to keep going back and checking? It's there. And the kind of buoyancy that I enjoy is because that is there in an abiding way. I think of it, I could be in pain and still be feeling joy. I could even be in a bad mood and feel joy. That joy is kind of behind whatever I happen to be feeling, physically or mentally or emotionally. Anyway, that's just some thoughts that occurred to me. But I do feel that we could have a lot more fun together. But I come from that background, but I see people are kind of very serious with each other, and we have a lot more give and take of love and fun. And but there are all these restrictions. This isn't done, that isn't done. You shouldn't behave this way, you shouldn't behave that way, and it gets so oppressive that it's and then Margi comes into the room and completely shatters this seriousness. But I don't mean that. Joy is quieter than excitement, I find. Joy is quiet, is kind of tranquil based. Excitement is kind of vibrating. So a lot of the joy has a kind of has a lot of power and presence to it, more than excitement. And so joy is kind of more at the level of the deeper level of the heart, I find, and excitement is kind of up in the head and in the imagination. So anyway, that's all. I hope that you enjoyed what I said.
Oh, it brought so much joy, Jeff.
Oh God. But when I have to look at all of you people, God, I don't know, brings me down.
Thank you, Jeff. We always appreciate it. All right, Ron.
Yeah, I have a few things that came up. Well, one was when you're talking about joy, I recall the term, especially when Jeff was talking about people who are always thinking about what is allowed to be done and what shouldn't be done and all this kind of thing. There's a term that you don't hear very often anymore. I haven't heard it very much. It's called killjoy.
Yeah, a killjoy.
A killjoy. Yeah. So that's an interesting term. You know, we should think about that and not really fall into that category of activity. But another thing, this is more of a personal way that I like to have fun, and that is I like to tease. I like to say something that's not really true, but do it in a fun way. I mean, I let people in on the fact that it's not true pretty quick. I don't let them hang out there. And I know Baba liked to tease people as well. So I kind of get some energy from the fact that Baba liked to tease some of his lovers. And so, and then what Diane was talking about with her car breaking down all the time, and the impact of having those kinds of experiences. Diane must know our good friend Lois Jones. And Lois Jones' mother apparently had this saying, and she passed it on to my wife Lisa and I, and that is, thank God for every delay. So that's an affirmation that Lisa and I always use. Whenever there's some kind of a delay, it doesn't matter what it might be. We just, one of us will remember to say that, and it'll put a smile on our face, because it's true. I mean, we have no idea what the impact of the delay is, but more than likely, it's for the greater benefit of all concerned. And then I wanted to also mention that my father-in-law, my wife Lisa's father, wrote a book about his childhood growing up in the Depression era in New York City. What is it though? East Side, West Side? I can't remember. I think West Side. But he claims that he and his buddies, who he used to hang out with from early age up until into his young adulthood, he said they had more fun in a day than some kids have in their whole childhood these days. And he might be right about that. If you consider looking at some of these kids on a little phone or a video thing where they're shooting people and destroying things, I have a feeling he was right. They had a lot more fun. And so we might want to look back into the way people had fun years ago for some good ideas on what would be fun, and not think about what the modern world is bringing to us and claiming is fun. It may not really be true. We really want to give it a good study. So that's what came to mind.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ron. I think you make a really good point. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, or right outside Scottsdale, Arizona, which is kind of the equivalent of like LA, but it's everybody who couldn't afford to live in LA, but still wanted the plastic surgery, like came here. So you see a lot of kids that it's so sad because they like have never even been outside, and they don't have that connection to just joy and fun. Like I think a lot of us did who didn't grow up in Scottsdale, Arizona. And so, yeah, it's a really good point that you bring up, that even kids now are not given the format of joy to grow up in. So how are they going to become adults that have joy when they didn't even have joy as kids?
Margie, how come they don't go outside? Because it's hot?
Because it's Scottsdale, Arizona, and everybody has their iPhones or their iPads or whatever.
And the other thing I forgot to mention about, well, I mentioned that my father-in-law grew up in the Depression, but also they were really poor. Like it was like two bedrooms, I think, and 4 kids and 2 adults, and with really no money. I mean, if they found a nickel or something like that, they would be jumping for joy. Anyhow, the idea of will money buy you happiness or even fun is questionable. So we have to question all these things, I think.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it. All right, we got Tony.
So listening to all this reminded me of something. I think joy is connected with love, and connected like with the golden rule. Thinking of what would make someone else happy in a situation. I did a fair amount of acting in the decade or so before COVID, and I know what really made me happy in the response I would get from an audience. I would do my best to give something, but when I gave it and they responded, it was the greatest circuit that was created. And so I realized that I wanted to be the kind of audience that I want when I'm acting. And we had a season tickets at a particular theater. Every month they had a new play, and I became known for my reactions, because people would sit there and they were just like, they're watching, they're enjoying it, but they're so controlled, And if I saw an actor do something that I knew was just right on the money, I would just, I wouldn't upset the program, but people. One of I only became aware of this because I wasn't doing it consciously when I was in the audience of a play that someone else in that company was directing, and afterwards, they would have refreshments and we would mix with each other, and he said that he was really enjoying watching my reactions, and he was watching me more than his own actors. But it's just when you tune into, like, and especially here too, I want to be I want to be participating in the way that I hope others will participate when I'm sharing, being totally present with it, and it makes for a lot of fun, a lot of joy, a lot of playfulness. So that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, beautiful, Tony. I think also you're Tony, you always have a way of like leading into something else. But also, if you think about all the hard times you've had in your life, it's kind of hard. You can remember them, but it's hard to like reenact that feeling, right? In the moment, it could have felt like you were dying, right? But when you look back, you're not like, man, I can still feel what it was like to just be going through emotional hardship. But when you look back at your life and you see moments of joy, you can tune right back into that moment because it exists in the eternal present, right? You can look at all the times you've laughed and all the joy and re-experience it at any time you want. You can like step in and take a dip.
Related to that, though, first thing that occurred to me was when you have the good fortune to be able to act, then whatever your character is experiencing, you've got to find, no matter how dark sometimes, you've got to find it in yourself to be able to really, and it's even though you're expressing joy or grief or anxiety, the actor inside the actor, at least for me, is feeling such joy at letting Baba play.
Yeah. I want to get to Jeff, but there's just one more thing I want to share. I was in India this year for Baba's birthday, and it was a very heavy trip. I think for everybody who was there, it was just like Baba was doing big work. It was like a heaviness. But on Baba's birthday, it was like Baba all knew that every one of us who was there was experiencing this hardship, and the joy that poured out on Baba's birthday just brought like it, everyone felt it. They were like, this is the best day of my life, because Baba knows how to push us to our breaking point and then throw that joy in so that we're able to keep going and we're refreshed and we're renewed. It's so beautiful. Okay, we got Jeff up next.
Yeah, I just a small point. And I think most of us experienced this in our early childhood. One day could last a month. because we were in the expansive present. You know, we didn't have the worries and anxieties about the future and dreams about the future. We didn't have regrets and nostalgia about the past. We weren't looking through the lens of the past or lens of the future, but we were very much in the present. And you really have to be in the present, you know, to feel joy. You know what I mean? It's like it's a present moment thing. And when you're in the present, you're looking for things that kind of open and you know, that are playful, that give some luster to an otherwise kind of plain moment. But you know, people are, you know, very very burdened about their past, or I got to get this done, I got to get that done, and they're really I know early on in my life with Baba asked me, you know, how much are you in the present? You know, a thing he said was to me, this is back in the 60s, in every moment there is always something loving that can be done. But then, which he said to me, you know, and I said, wow, that seems fairly straightforward. But then he said, well, but you have to get to the moment. How much would you say you're in the moment? Now, this is back then when I was nostalgic about my past. I was regretful of a lot of things I did in my college days. I was burdened by what the hell am I going to do with my life? And then the Vietnam War was going on, and there's no way I could even get into the present. And so when I assessed myself, I found, because I was in a, you know, really overcast mental turmoil, when I assessed how much I was in the present, I was only about 10% in the present. Now, how can you have any fun if you're only just spot checking the present instead of living in the present? So that was kind of a blueprint for me. I had to get as much as I could into the present, and that's been a whole journey in itself. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
But I got to do something right now. I'm sorry. No, I'm just joking.
Thank you, Jeff. We always love when you talk. All right, I knew Marion was going to share something. I know she has her joy tools. I'm very excited to hear. When I wrote this email, I thought about what Marion was going to say, and I was like, oh, I'm excited for this.
Well, I've been pondering what to say so that I'm clear and not take up so much time. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, that's my choice. Because there's been more other times also to share. As I was always known, and especially as an adult and all, of my ability to play. And even with my kids, I had son and daughter, they're all grown, and my grandkids, so I was able to really, really play, get down on the ground and, I don't know, roll around and roll down a grassy slope. And I just had that in me. And so now, so I'm going to speak about now. So that was never a big issue with me, because I play I have what I consider also to get me in the moment. So sometimes it's play, and sometimes doesn't feel like play. It's creative expression. It's, you know, so all those have a spectrum of what's play and what isn't. How big is that spectrum? But I've always had, since I was a little kid in Brentwood, Missouri, where I grew up out of the Depression a long time ago, is learned how to do the yo-yo, because a guy came from Duncan Yo-Yo on the street, and he demonstrated. So I've been doing yo-yo, you know, for decades. So I carry a yo-yo in my purse. So when I'm out on the street in New York City, yeah, nobody pays any attention, but I throw my yo-yo and do that, because even though by Baba's name, sometimes even with Baba's name, the mind chatter will crowd in and try to push it away. And so then I find if I have something, or like taking a ball, I love balls, and big ones, little ones that have all those little stubs all over them, and walking down a street and just bouncing a ball. It just keeps me in a moment. And and playing my harmonica. And now people are asking me, I go to this, like tonight I was at a church dinner, and somebody, you know, I was asked if I would come and play some songs, and I don't look for those opportunities, but I said, okay, I would do that. So I have these things that are creative for me. And it's also going to, I'm in New York City, so going to Central Park. And as Baba said, nature and the arts, the most direct connection with the divine. So my salvation is getting to Central Park, hugging the trees, laying on the ground, getting my shoes off, getting my feet on the ground. And amazing things happen there. No matter how down I'm feeling, I don't try to feel better. I'm wise about connecting inwardly with Baba and listening for wise counseling, something that grabs me. And so I'll meet these amazing teenagers who, if I'm sitting up on a hill, reading or lying on the ground, and the other day, this 15-year-old girl, I wasn't right near her. She and her crowd were over somewhere else. All of a sudden I opened my eyes as I was drifting up, and she's sitting there next to me to talk to me. She ends up confiding in me, like something about this. She's only 15, but she's involved with this boy, and she doesn't know if it's wise. And all of a sudden I'm counseling her about her life, with this romance. So these amazing things happen. Are dogs in Central Park, and toddlers. This is just magic for me, because I think toddlers are my teachers, because when they're a toddler, they're always running away from the parents, but they want to be assured the parents are there, for safety. And whenever the parent tries to direct them in another direction, the toddler doesn't want to go. They want to go in a different one. And the parents always trying to get them back on the sidewalk, and the kids trying to climb up a rock. And it reminds me that I still have a toddler inside of me, and give her some room to do something just spontaneous, so all of that is programmed in me. And now I'm going through a lot of pain, because I know there's other people here who've also, Tony, and I don't want to say people's names, but do nonviolent communication. And so I have my needs and feelings sheets. I don't have just 2 needs or 2 feelings. There's a whole page of them. And I went away at the end of May to Ohio to my oldest grandson's graduation from Kenyon College. And my daughter and my son-in-law, they took me, made all the reservations, everything. And I'm in this small town, Gambier, Ohio. And I have never had such an experience that I had every need met. If anybody's done NVC, you can say every need was met. Now, I live alone in New York City, and I do pretty well. And my daughter would never let me, be without or something, but I do okay. But it's a lot taking care of myself at my age. And so when I came back, I got very depressed and very sad and unhappy. And I knew not to try to push it aside or get rid of it. Go through it, be with it, explore it. And what came through was that I experienced having every need met, and I don't have that here. And I come up now for questions with Baba. I've been taught powerful questions bring powerful answers. So I do my best to do my in the moment things, that are joyful. And, but this shadow side that I'm going through now, it's just needing patience and allowing. And I came up with the decision to leave the apartment that I've lived in for 56 years and live in some kind of independent living. Now, I never considered that. So this is like a juncture that, wow. So my understanding about joy in me is what Baba talks about in the discourse, and where I've done all of my spiritual professional training. When you can hold, I'm not talking about you people, I'm talking about humanity, anyone, both sides of duality equally, pain and pleasure, happiness and unhappiness, grief and joy, and they're held equally, it's the gateway to the unitive state of I am. So that's where I am with this. And they're both there at the same time. And that's what joy is. It's not the same as happiness or unhappiness. It's joy. So thank you. I'll close with that. And it's to be continued, because I don't know what's coming up for me. I don't know, but I'm going to keep bouncing that ball and doing the yo-yo and laying on the ground a lot. So thank you.
Marian, wow, thank you so much for sharing. That was so vulnerable, but also so amazing to hear. And you bring up a good point that, when the emotions come, right, or the feelings come, we don't need to avoid them, but also allow joy to come back in, right? I think we can get stuck in that feeling state, and then we're pushing joy away. And it's, when when the negative feelings are there, sit in them, but then also trust that Bob is going to bring joy soon, right? And be open to when that's coming through. So
Clarity.
so much.
I always say, out of the chaos comes the order. Order comes out of chaos. And when stepping into a new expanded state, there is always chaos. And so out of that comes the clarity and the joy always. So it's having all the tools, I call it tools in my toolbox, to be in that chaos, and trusting that Baba holding my hand, I'll come through it into the light of clarity.
Yeah, beautiful. Marian, before we go on to Ron, I just have to say, you get me excited to be an old lady. Really.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, no, but you're so grounded in yourself. It always, I'm like, oh, that looks fun over there.
Still have fun, right?
All right, we've got Ron.
Listening to Tony talk about the way he approaches acting got me thinking about something that I heard not too long ago that really has been sticking with me, and I share it fairly often because I think it's something that may not be talked about very much. And what it is, I heard this fellow, a young fellow who's a philosopher, talk about the idea of safety. And I know my son one time was working for a company and they had a saying, safety first. So in other words, be very careful when you're doing this or that on the job and stuff. They didn't want to end up with people getting injured and stuff. So I can see maybe for that, it might be true, but it certainly shouldn't be true in life. And that's what this philosopher was saying. So his saying was safety third. And so he was talking to his son about this. His young son asked him, he says, well, if safety is third, what is first and second? And the answer is giving and taking. And that's what Tony was talking about in acting. You know, you give something and you will possibly take something. You don't know what it's necessarily going to be. But the other, and so what comes into play there is taking risks and exercising daring. And I know Tony must realize that sometimes if you're going to act and perform with your whole heart, which is Baba said is kind of essential in a good performance, you're going to take some risks every once in a while, at least, if not often. And so safety is not going to be first. It's not going to be. It's the giving and the taking. You know, safety can sit back there at third and be happy. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. That's great. Thanks. Tony.
Just something about, I enjoyed that, Ron, by the way, that was fun. About what Marian was saying, and when things are difficult, and sometimes you're just going through hell, it happens. And I suddenly remembered the story of the mandali meme days, and one of the disciples was out and ran into someone he knew, and the fellow was telling him, you believe in Mayor Baba, you are going to hell. Because you believe in Mayor Baba, you are going to hell. And when he went back to the manzil and he told Baba what had happened, and he said, well, you see, what you should have said to him is, even in hell, my beloved is with me, so that's okay.
Diana, Terry, and Valeria are going to bed. Good night, guys.
Night. Good night.
Good night. Lovely to meet you, Valeria. Good night, Diane. Good night, Terry.
I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
J-Pop.
See you in another 31 years, Valeria, or maybe sooner.
Yep. Wonderful to see you, Valeria. Jay Bob. Yeah.
Hey, Baba.
Hard
What is
to
it? Nursing home over there? I mean, it's only 8:30 or something like that.
Oh, they're gone.
Oh, they're gone.
Hi, Rich. Rich just popped on. Welcome. We're talking about joy and the importance of childlike play and joy in mundane life.
It's not something that I'm very familiar with.
So maybe there's a reason you popped on.
My dogs give me joy. I like to see them, play and have fun and all that. When I was young, I felt much freer about living my life, but I was more unconscious about living my life as well. So I remember one time, this is a footnote, going to the center, and Jeff and a whole bunch of people were playing volleyball. And about 3 or 4 people kept waving me in, come on, play it. I just didn't want to do it. And I've been that way quite a bit, especially as I've gotten older. I have a friend that bought some sea-doos, and he wants me to come and go play on the lake and all that. And I really don't care. And it's sad because you might as well enjoy your life. Anyway, go ahead. I want to hear more about joy.
Well, Josh actually about a half hour ago put some really good questions in the chat. But Josh, would you be willing to ask the questions? Because everybody likes your Australian accent. When I talk, they do go, oh, that American, I don't want to answer the questions. But when they,
That's my pleasure, Margie, and I can even lay it on thicker. All right, so I'll make it a little bit less Australian so that people can understand. Sorry.
Is that English? No.
Exactly. It's okay. Let's just scroll through all the things that I've been saying. Been saying a lot. Okay. Okay. What are ways that Barber lovers could have fun together and cultivate joy? More improv theater? Question mark. Maybe Barber events in less sacred places so people can be goofier. Yeah, if everyone was just brainstorming and spitballing, what kind of things would bring you joy? I mean, we've got an unlimited budget here, so you can go wild, and we're not committing to anything. But yeah, I want to hear it. I'll speak for myself first, because I do this thing where I ask others to do things and I don't myself do it. So I'll jump in the water first. Improv theater, definitely. And also more used spaces that are less, I mean, quote unquote, sacred. That's not to say that sacred spaces are bad. Love the Somali, love sacred spaces, but I like these Zooms because it's a chance to foster a more sort of like informal relationship with Barber. It's where people can make mistakes, people can come on and fumble with the Zoom meeting, for 20 minutes, and we're all just having fun, and it's relaxed. I really like that. And I'm also a big fan of food. I feel like food is a great way to inject. I feel like Barber energy comes through food a lot. I find in certain events, if there's a lot of food and it's good food, suddenly, I don't know, it's like, wow, this Barber Sahavas has gone to a different level. Chai tea, oh yeah, that's another good one. But yeah, so I want to hear any other ideas that people have. Please speak out.
yeah, thank you, Josh. You make a good point. If you ever want Barber lovers to come to a party, just have chai and food, and they will come. They will bring Ziploc containers and they will come.
Yeah.
All right, Marion, go ahead.
Yes, very quickly. Something that was very important to me is like looking at, animals. And one that I always, they're just such teachers. And I had learned something about why frogs are so happy. And they're so happy because they eat whatever bugs them.
I like that. Next thing you know, Jeff is going to start taking bites out of some of the center guests.
Here's an interesting thing. It's kind of somewhat related. And Heather Nadell told me this. At the trust compound in the afternoon on that back veranda, they would have tea at 3:30. And Erich would be there. And some of the Westerners who, residents who work in, very serious workers and everything, they would time it in such a way when they had to go into town that they would be around so they could drop in and have chai with Erich. And so, so one day Erich is sitting there. This is Heather telling me this. And there are a number of these Westerners, and there were a lot of turf wars, and this is my thing, I'm doing this, and you're not doing your work, you're not up to par, and all that, blah, blah. So Erich just kind of innocently says, what does Gary Kleiner do all day? Now, and they said, you mean, you really want to know what Gary Kleiner does all day? Yeah, what does Gary do? What does Gary do? Well, Erich, he kind of collects money in the morning. He plays volleyball in the afternoon, but pretty much all he does is just kind of hang out with the pilgrims, talking with the pilgrims. That's all that he does? I said, I'm afraid that's all he does, Erich. Erich says, good, that's the most important thing. And all these people were very serious, doing their job, serving Baba, And the nice thing about Gary, at least he related to you. He wasn't so caught up in his duty that, he could interact with you personally. And that's what Erich, now here's the right-hand man of the avatar saying that, the personal interactions, and as he's saying, is more important than this, such a fixation on work. In fact, Monty used to say, don't let your work for Baba take you away from Baba. Many people have fallen on that path. So, you can kind of, Erich is kind of pointing out, just if you take it too seriously and you're not really present for other people. Another thing that Erich said is that the Baba embraced us and we embraced you. And you go on embracing. This is going to go from embrace to embrace, from heart to heart into the world. Not necessarily from organized campaigns of spreading Baba's name, but at a heart level. And and they really, the mandali, in my experience, and I'm sure you had the same thing, they really took a personal interest in us. They weren't just friendly, they were personal. Friendly is what the receptionist at the dental office greets you with. But if you see that receptionist in the grocery store and say, hey, how you doing? Oh, who's this? Oh my God. This guy is a little bit weird. So anyway, that's part of the fun and enjoy that we can have with each other. And if we just get too attached to our attaché case on the way to do, make it in the world, we may miss a lot of beautiful opportunities. So,
thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, really beautifully said. I think not even in your work, I guess all your work can be work for Baba, but even in day-to-day life, I always think of Terry with her dental hygienist-ness. If she's just cleaning teeth all day, that doesn't really make anybody's day better, right? It's her like being present and connecting with the person. Like, who cares how many teeth she cleans if the people leave happy that she did her job?
You feel a lot happier when your teeth are cleaned. No, I know, it's funny. That's a great example. Cleaning people's teeth, it's a good thing. It's a nice service, but it's kind of the spirit you do it in, the connecting. That means the world to people, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, Tony.
I wrote a poem called Hugs. I wish I could read it now, but it would take too long to find it. But it's just what you were talking about, Jeff. What I raised my hand about was a sense of humor. I came out of my teen years into my early 20s, feeling that I was just way too serious. And I had a very good friend by the name of Chuck Magro, who has since passed away, who had the most extraordinary, he found things funny that you would never think were funny until he started laughing about it. And at around this time, Ken Moore, in one of his talks, was saying, you know, Baba is the ocean of infinite attributes. So if you feel you're lacking some quality, you can go to him and ask for that quality, because God has infinite attributes, and it's not like asking him for stuff, you know. And so I took the time and I asked Baba for a sense of humor. And over the years, I've been really pleased to watch how Baba continues to answer that. And so sometimes when I'm in a joyful or a silly mood, I'll walk into the kitchen, and it'll be a conversation, and I'll say something, and it just comes out of my mouth. I don't know. It came from Baba. I don't know where it came from. And say my wife might not get it, and I will stop. I'm enjoying it so much, I will say, no, that was a joke. And it was a really funny joke, too. And I'll explain the joke, not because I don't need the response from the other person. That the joy and in joy and in the humor, ultimately it's Baba responding. So when you're being playful, it's Baba in you that's playing, and then you get to enjoy Baba's joy in playing in you. So
Yeah, excellent. Really. I'll just describe one little scene. The mandali were really up for humor. And, you know, if you were a Christian and you were hanging out with Matthew and Mark and Martha and Luke and all those people don't realize that I'm sure they were a lot of fun to be with, and not, you know, these revered people, you know. But anyway, Mansari was, she was, you know, the keeper of the tomb. And I used to like to play pranks on her. And on this one, just before I left for India, it was just after Halloween. And they had these great Halloween masks that were very realistic. And they had a swath of, a mop of white hair. And, you know, this was this very ghoulish guy. And you know, you put it on and your eyes would kind of be able to look out through this, you know, these nicely cut out holes, you know. So for some reason I had on my first, you know, trip up to the tomb, I realized I had this thing in my pocket. So I got up to the tomb, and Mansari is fearless. She was like, you know, she even fought off snakes and everything. So anyway, I go into the tomb and bow down for the first time. There's seemingly no one up there. It turns out that Larry Green is in the tomb there. And when I'm in there, after I bow down and I spend time, I think, oh God, I got that mask. I'm going to put on this mask. And so I come out of the tomb with Larry Green. He thinks this is the old man that needs help out of the tomb. So he's helping me, this really ghoulish face. I mean, it was like, and I come out there, and Mansari she takes a look at me, and I don't know if I can do this, but you know how you namaste like this? Well, she was kind of using it like a protective device, and I'm walking toward her with this as a ghoul. She thinks it like some, you know, weird character. I mean, some entity is like, you know, emerging out of the tomb. And I'm walking toward her, and she's backing along the side of the tomb as I get closer along the rock, you know, along the side of the thing. And, you know, I Jai Baba, Jai Baba, Jai Baba. And then I took the thing off. I got her completely. You know,
oh my God.
You have to keep it light, you know, you have to kind of, it just, you know, you can't have it predictable. And Alaba liked that mask so much because it makes a different person out altogether. And he came out at Mirzad at 3:00, time for tea, time for tea, time for tea, you know, as this ghoul. carrying the big pot of tea. I got a lot of great mileage out of that thing. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, a lot of incidents, but you know, you gotta like get off the main freeway onto some of the blue roads here of life, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
You know, it reminded me of, like, you know, Baba can, if he can't get through the serious, you know, way that he is, he'll get someone through humor without them realizing. And so my ex he just didn't take to Baba. He never, I mean, he was fine with me, but it didn't make much sense to him. But so we went to the center and, you know, he met a bunch of people and he was very, you know, he called them the moaners because Jeff gave out his cards and everybody would read a card and then everyone would moan out, But anyway, so he thought how hilarious it would be if he found a toaster that printed Baba's face, and then he wanted to put it in he wanted me to take this toaster to the center and put it in the refectory so that people would put toast in, and then they would get a piece of toast and be like, wow, Baba's face is randomly on this piece of toast. And I think it's amazing because this guy, not a Baba lover, is kind of like, just really didn't get it. Looking up pictures of Baba, he has pictures of Baba saved on his computer, sending it out to people on Etsy to try to get a toaster printed just for the sake of humor. It's just funny how Baba gets people, but I think that would be great. People go, oh my God, Baba's on my toast. But,
that's a great idea. Actually, you know what I mean, to take a piece of toast and burn it in such a way that it forms Baba's face. And then you kind of casually say, I'm having a piece of toast. Would you like a piece? You know, and then you get your toast and then you bring theirs on their plate kind of nonchalantly and then just.
Yeah, but imagine like if you were sitting in the refectory and people were.
Bob, unbelievable. God, take a photograph of that toast.
There is a photograph of Baba's face on the toast. The women mandali saw it and they brought it out and showed it to us when I was there one year.
Oh, wow.
The photo.
That's a
real thing.
Tony, I'm going to go to Betty just because she hasn't shared yet, and then I'll circle back to you. Go ahead, Betty.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Jeff, I wondered about Mansari. Was she mad? Did that make her mad when she, or was she?
Oh, no. She got a great kick because I used to play all sorts of pranks on her. She enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Oh, she had a good laugh. I got her really good.
Totally unrelated, but I just thought, since you're all here, Saturday is Angela's birthday, and there's going to be a party, I guess, at the Circle for all July birthdays in the afternoon. But Roshani had wanted to lead some kind of, you know, people doing something for Angela in the morning. Roshani she had an emerged family thing. So I just thought, I just know that it's Angela's birthday. If you want to send her a message or if you see her, say happy birthday, you know, just know that that's her birthday. That's all.
Thank you, Betty.
Good.
Yeah. That. Thanks. All right, on to Tony.
You know, we're getting near the end, and I just thought of this joke. I've shared this before, and I said it was Mani's joke, and then immediately after that session, whatever it was, I thought, wait a second, that wasn't Mani. I was in Mandali Hall, and Mani was calling for jokes. And I told her this joke, and later I found that she had, after I came back to New York, I found that she was telling this joke to other people. Anyway, this is the joke. As I knew it, it had sort of stronger language, so I toned it down just a little bit. Jesus and Moses on the golf course. Jesus gets up and he takes a swing, and the thing goes off towards the green, and it just looks like it's about to roll in for a hole-in-one, and a rabbit jumps out of the hole, grabs the ball, and starts running down the green. All of a sudden, from behind the bush, a fox comes out and grabs the rabbit who's holding the ball and shoots off into the woods. Suddenly an eagle swoops down from the sky, picks up the fox who's holding the rabbit, who's holding the ball, soars off into the wild blue yonder. It was a beautiful sunny day, blue sky. All of a sudden, storm clouds gather and they're rumbling, and they open up in the middle, and a big bolt of lightning streaks down and hits the eagle, who drops the fox, who drops the rabbit, who drops the ball, and it falls on the green to roll in for a hole-in-one. Moses turns to Jesus and says, "You're going to mess around or you're going to play golf?"
Stop the shit. Let's play golf.
Well, it was F instead of miss. Yeah.
Oh,
I love that. Thanks, Tony. That's a great joke.
oh,
All right, we have Marion.
oh, that reminds me. It's amazing you brought that up about golfing, because I was thinking of a friend of mine who lives in Connecticut, and she loves to golf. And I've always admired that about her, her passion for golfing. But I noticed one day that she wears 2 pair of pants when she golfs. And so I said to her, why do you wear 2 pairs of pants? And she said, in case I get a hole-in-one.
Oh my God. Oh, that's great. Oh, that got Rich, you're laughing too. I see you. I got you.
Well, I've been having some difficulty today. I think I breathed in a little insect spray yesterday. But anyway, I was going to tell a joke that I've always tried to make. I love jokes. And I remember the big story Tony would know about. Dr. Kenmore told a very famous joke when he was in front of Baba. And it was about a man that went shopping for a chicken for dinner. And so the man was going home and
Call you in a second.
Jeff would know this story really well. But the man was on his way home. This is way back in the days you bought raw live chickens, right? So it was a live chicken, and he went by the theater and it's the marquee, and he had to see this movie. So he goes in, buys a ticket, sits down, and he bought some popcorn on the way in, because you got to have that. So he's sitting there watching the movie, and this chicken is in his pants because he wanted to hide it from everybody. So he unzips his pants, and the chicken sticks his head out, and the chicken starts eating his popcorn, And he's enjoying the movie. And these women down the way, this one woman was noticing this. And this is a story that Dr. Kenmore told Baba in front of everybody. And so this one woman says, Margaret, look at that guy over there. Look at that. And she said, oh, everybody's seen one of those before. And yes, but have you ever seen one eat popcorn?
Yeah,
Oh
I've
my
heard
God.
that. Yeah.
So I've always tried to make up jokes, and I'm really lousy at it. I'm terrible at it, but I'll do a real quick one. So this is my own personal joke. So I live on the West Slope, Colorado, and actually about 100 years ago, actually a little more, 120 years ago, there were still Indian tribes around here. It's very much associated with several different tribes. But anyway, there was this one big tribe, and they were very odd. This tribe had this habit of going and peeing on spots everywhere, like a dog just marking their spot. And so this tribe was actually pretty famous, and they became known as the Uri Nation.
Oh my God.
It takes a while. I know it takes. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. I'm not good at jokes. I'm telling.
Yeah, that's good. I like that, Rich.
I do remember Harry telling that slightly differently, but it still worked that way.
Tell it, Tony. Tell it, because he was very robust.
Well, it's a fellow who had a pet chicken, and he just loved this pet chicken, and he took this pet chicken everywhere. He never went anywhere without his pet chicken. But the same guy was also madly in love with Marilyn Monroe. And so a new Marilyn Monroe picture came out, and he was the first online. I'd like a ticket, please. And very officiously, the guy looks at him, and he looks at the chicken. He says, "No chickens allowed in the theater." And he says, No, this is my pet chicken. It won't bother anyone. "No chickens allowed in the theater." And no matter what he said, the guy wouldn't listen. So he's heartbroken and he's frantic. He doesn't know what to do. He goes home and he says, I know. He said, he gets this big overcoat and he puts the chicken in his pants and he puts a big overcoat over and he goes back up and he says, I'd like a ticket, please. And the guy looks at him and he doesn't see the chicken. He doesn't know what's going on, but he says, okay. And he gives him the ticket. So this fella gets a nice seat, so sort of in the middle, and it's Marilyn on the screen, and he's just so loving this whole thing. And suddenly he's struck with conscience. My poor chicken, he's going to suffocate in there. So very discreetly, he just pulled down his zipper, and the chicken stuck its head out. And he's watching the movie. Meanwhile, there are these two Jewish ladies sitting alongside him on his left, and one of them turns to the other and says, Emily, what? There's a man sitting next to me and he's exposed. She says, so what, Sadie? You've seen one, you've seen them all. She says, yes, but Emily, this one's eating my popcorn.
Oh my God, that's great. That's great.
I heard him tell that in an after dinner thing. I happened to be up at Anna Rose's apartment and he was having dinner. They were all up there and I just walked in to get to hear all these jokes he told Baba before the Baba meeting started in like 10 minutes downstairs.
Oh, that's great. All right, we got Josh.
Okay, yes. I was just wondering if Richard felt that we've inspired him to have more cultivated fun in his life, or any ideas that he might have, considering before he was saying that he might, that he was stuck for some ideas. Anything? It's okay if nothing has occurred.
What do you mean, Josh?
Am I right in remembering that you were saying that you cultivating like that childlikeness was something that you felt that you hadn't done very much? I'm wondering if you've gotten any ideas from this Zoom since you've joined.
The only thing that's really happened in my life that's really changed, about 50 yards away, there's a daycare center. I might have mentioned this before. And some of those kids, when they really get into it, and there's two sections. One is babies, sort of, and the other section are like you're 2.5 to 4.5, 5 years old. And they're just the cutest thing. And they stroll down to the park, they come back, and they're so happy. And I mean, this is pure joy. This is like, and all they're doing is holding hands and walking down to the park and back. But it just like, they're like little sunshines, you know, it just radiates off of them, gesundheit. But they're just so happy. And then when they play, of course, they scream like they're killing each other, you know. I mean, the screams are, I mean, it's amazing, the screams that come out of these kids. Because, and I didn't remember that from my childhood. And they have so much fun. They really do. So it really does cheer me up. That's one thing I got to say. But yeah, I've been a little too sober in my life. And when I was younger, I think I enjoyed just being alive more. You know, you bring in that energy. And it's one place where I think maybe I failed Baba somewhat. I'm good with people, though. I really like to bring a cheerfulness to people. And I don't know why, it's very natural. And I would rather leave someone with a smile on their face than anything, you know, because I think most people carry a burden inside that's very difficult to deal with on the outside world. It's very tough, you know. But
yeah, cool stuff. Yeah, sometimes when kids are having fun, I like have to like look out and check that they're safe, that they're not being murdered or something, because they're having so much fun that it's just like mind blowing for them. Yeah, no, that's cool.
Thank you. Yeah, Rich, maybe to get that childlike joy, you just need to go outside and scream like you're being murdered. All right, we've got Ron.
I have a recommendation for anyone that would want to read some things based upon what we were talking about in some spiritual literature. One of my favorite books that I've read throughout the years by C.S. Lewis. It's called The Screw Tape Letters. Maybe some of you have read that before, but there's one particular chapter that I always remember. and I often go back to it and I often quote it, and because it just grabbed me as one of the more important letters written by this advisor to a lower echelon devil. And in this particular one, he talks about all different kinds of humor. And so if you go onto the internet and put in screw tape letters, humor, I think you'll locate that particular letter. Somebody will have posted it somewhere. That's what I've done the last few times. I think you'll enjoy it because he focuses on these various kinds of humor, and the highest one is joy. Joy is the purest and highest form of humor. And then the second most high is fun. And so we talked about both of those. And then he gets into things like the joke. And jokes are not quite as pure. You know, you have to really be more careful with jokes. Sometimes jokes can be hurtful. It's not that easy to tell a joke that really is humorous. And I won't tell you what the last thing he talks about is, but I find it very interesting in his take on it. It's only a page and a half or something like that long. So, but I do recommend that. Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis on humor.
Thanks,
It
Ron.
was read for Erich in Mandali Hall when I was there once, and the fellow whose name I've forgotten now introduced it as letters from an old devil to a young devil. Letters of advice from an old devil to a young devil.
Advisory. It's the devil's handbook, basically. We get to read it.
And C.S. Lewis became a very devoted Christian at some point in his life, so that sort of influenced the writing of that book. But it's really very good.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Lots of laughs, lots of funness. I do have one last joke that I want to share with you guys, but it's actually Jeff's joke. So I'm very much stealing it from Jeff, and I'm accrediting it. I'm going to have a problem at some point when Jeff and I are like in the same room, and I'm not going to have any material because all of my stories are from listening to him for, 20 years, just sitting there in the refectory and original kitchen. What'd you say, Jeff? Oh, you're muted.
I said you're warped. That's why you're warped.
Oh yeah. No, I'm a carbon copy of Jeff, but I tell this story to a lot of people, or a lot of Bible lovers, but it's a St. Peter joke. So St. Peter's at the pearly gates, and he's, welcoming people in, and, kind of taking inventory. And the first guy comes up and he says, so how were you financially in life? How'd you do? And so the guy says, oh, well, I did okay. I had everything I needed. I probably could have used a little bit more money. I gave money to the poor when I could, but I lived an average life. And so St. Peter says, okay, yeah, go ahead. And the next guy comes, St. Peter says the same thing. How did you do financially in your life? And the guy says, I had tons of money. Everything was just good. I had the wife, the kids, the house. And St. Peter says, okay, all right, go ahead in, you didn't do anything bad. The next guy comes and, St. Peter asks the same question. He says, how did you do financially? And the guy said, oh man, I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. I was sleeping on friends' couches. I was, just trying to get enough money to eat. I was eating what I could find. I was pursuing, some artistic career that wasn't ever going to work out. And St. Peter, has this inquisitive look on his face, and he looks at the guy and he says, with a sparkle in his eye, Jay Baba. I might have told that a little bit wrong, Jeff, but that was.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. Uh-oh. Something happened here.
Oh gosh.
On the darker side, I was sharing a joke that certainly I related to, have often related to over the years. The question is, what does a new Bible lover want? What does a new Bible lover want? Answer, God realization. What does an old Bible lover want? Answer, a day off.
Yes. Humor has a lot of truth in it. Yes.
Well, I guess on that note, we will close it up. Let's have actually, Josh, can you read that, what you said in the beginning about I don't know if you guys read that in the chat, but about the child, what was it? A creative person?
Yes.
So
Okay. So the Ursula Le Guin quote. So she was a really cool author, and I think this is her, but Google it. But yeah. So she said, the creative person is the child who survived.
so beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Wow, that's great. Well, I guess on that note, we'll close it up. So let's have a moment of silence, and then we'll unmute and we'll do an avatar Mir Baba Ki Jai 3 times. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Avatar
Meher Baba Ki Jai.